Document Part 1. The galaxy had been on edge for years, but no one expected it to fall apart so quickly. It all began in a cold, sterile room aboard the space station Elysium, where representatives from across the stars had gathered to discuss their shared future. The air was tense, thick with unspoken grievances and simmering anger. Everyone knew this meeting was important. It might decide whether the fragile peace holding the galaxy together would survive or crumble. Daniel Carter stood at the center of it all. As Earth's ambassador, he carried the weight of humanity on his shoulders. His suit was perfectly pressed, his tie neatly knotted, but there was something sharp in his eyes, something that made others uneasy. When it was his turn to speak, he stepped forward without hesitation. The room fell silent, every alien gaze fixed on him. "We've tried diplomacy," Daniel said, his voice steady but cutting. "For decades, we've sat at these tables, listened to demands, given concessions, and bent over backward to keep the peace. But it hasn't worked. Humanity is done negotiating. We will no longer bow to threats or bend to unreasonable requests." He paused, letting his words sink in. "From this moment on, Earth speaks only through action." Gasps rippled through the assembly hall. Some delegates leaned back in shock. Others exchanged worried glances. Leela Monroe, a diplomat from the aquatic Centauri species, stared at Daniel with wide, unblinking eyes. Her fins fluttered, slightly a sign of agitation among her kind. She opened her mouth to respond, but stopped herself, shaking her head instead. The message was clear. Humanity had just declared war, not with weapons, but with words. As Daniel returned to his seat, whispers erupted around the room. A representative from the insectoid Vaxians clicked his mandibles angrily, while a towering Krylos warrior clenched his fists until his knuckles turned white. Even those who had once considered themselves allies of Earth now looked at Daniel with suspicion and disdain. The carefully constructed web of alliances that had held the galaxy together began to unravel right before their eyes. Back on Earth, news of Daniel's speech spread like wildfire. People watched live broadcasts of the summit, their reactions ranging from pride to outrage. Rachel Dawson, the President of the United States, sat in the Oval Office watching the footage with a growing sense of dread. She had trusted Daniel to represent humanity's interests, but she hadn't anticipated such a bold move. Now, as calls poured in from world leaders demanding answers, she realized the gravity of what had happened. "What were you thinking?" Rachel asked later during a private video call with Daniel. Her tone was calm but laced with frustration. "I did what I thought was best," Daniel replied, though his usual confidence seemed to waver under her scrutiny. "We can't keep giving in to their demands forever. If we don't stand up for ourselves now, when will we?" Rachel sighed deeply, rubbing her temples. "You may have just started a war we're not ready to fight." Meanwhile, far beyond Earth, the fallout from Daniel's declaration was already taking shape. Commander Jorak of the Krylos, a hulking figure clad in battle armor, slammed his fist onto the table during an emergency meeting aboard his flagship. "This is unacceptable," he roared, his voice reverberating through the chamber. "Humanity has insulted us all. They think they are superior. We'll show them otherwise." Jorak wasn't alone in his outrage. Across the galaxy, factions began to form, old rivalries reignited by humanity's refusal to cooperate. Alliances shifted, and plans for retaliation took shape. What had once been a fragile but functional system of interstellar relations was now spiraling into chaos. And yet, amidst the brewing storm, few could have predicted how far things would go or how much blood would be spilled before the end. For now, the galaxy held its breath, waiting to see who would make the next move. Document Part 2. The Fallout from Daniel. Carter's declaration rippled across the galaxy faster than anyone could have imagined. Back on Earth, President Rachel Dawson faced mounting pressure to explain why humanity had turned its back on diplomacy. News outlets buzzed with debates, and protests erupted in major cities. Some supported Daniel's bold stance, believing it was time for Earth to assert itself. Others feared the consequences of his words, knowing full well that alien civilizations were not known for their patience or forgiveness. In the midst of the chaos, Rachel called an emergency meeting with her closest advisors. The room was dimly lit, the air heavy with tension. "We need to fix this," she said, her voice firm, but tinged with worry. "If we don't act soon, we're going to lose whatever allies we have left." Her chief strategist, a wiry man named Ethan Blake, nodded slowly. He had been quietly observing the situation unfold, piecing together clues about who might benefit from the breakdown in diplomacy. Something didn't sit right with him. Daniel's outburst seemed too calculated, too sudden. While Earth grappled with internal turmoil, the galaxy began reshaping itself. On board the Krylos flagship Vanguard, Commander Jorak paced furiously, his armored boots clanking against the metal floor. His second-in-command, a young officer named Varric, stood nearby, watching nervously as Jorak muttered curses under his breath. Finally, Jorak stopped and turned to face Varric. "Humanity has declared war," he growled, "and they will regret it." Jorak wasted no time. He reached out to the Zentari, hoping to forge an alliance against Earth. Lila Monroe, the Zentari diplomat, who had witnessed Daniel's speech firsthand, was hesitant at first. She didn't trust the Krylos. They were notorious for their aggression and lust for power. But when Queen Nysa, the leader of the Zentari, received word of humanity's defiance, she agreed to meet with Jorak. Together, they began planning how to punish Earth for its arrogance. Back on Earth, tensions continued to rise. General Marcus Lane, head of Earth's military forces, issued orders to prepare for potential conflict. Soldiers trained tirelessly, and engineers worked around the clock to upgrade Earth's fleet of starships. Captain Olivia Hayes, one of Earth's most decorated officers, found herself thrust into the spotlight. Known for her tactical brilliance, she was tasked with leading a squadron of experimental ships equipped with cutting-edge quantum disruptors. Though honored, Olivia couldn't shake the feeling that war was the last thing anyone needed. Amidst all the preparation, whispers of betrayal began to surface. Ethan Blake, still investigating behind the scenes, uncovered troubling information. Hidden files suggested that corporate tycoon Richard Grayson, CEO of a powerful defense contractor, had manipulated key figures within Earth's government. Grayson stood to profit immensely. If interstellar relations collapsed, he had already secured lucrative contracts to supply weapons to Earth's military. Ethan realized that Daniel's speech might not have been entirely his own idea. Ethan wasn't the only one digging for answers. Sarah Hughes, a determined journalist with a knack for uncovering secrets, stumbled upon classified documents detailing secret experiments conducted by Earth's defense forces. These experiments involved advanced technology stolen from alien races, raising ethical questions about humanity's role in the galaxy. Sarah knew she had a story that could change everything, but publishing it would put her life at risk. As days passed, alliances shifted dramatically. The Krylos and Zentari weren't the only ones preparing for conflict. Smaller factions, once neutral or even friendly toward Earth, began siding with Jorak. They saw humanity's refusal to negotiate as a threat to galactic stability. Meanwhile, refugees from border colonies started fleeing inward, seeking safety from growing hostility. Stories of families torn apart and lives destroyed spread like wildfire, further fueling anti-human sentiment on board the Vanguard. Jorak addressed his crew, his voice booming through the ship's speakers. "Humanity thinks it can stand alone," he declared, his eyes blazing with fury. "But they are wrong. We will unite the galaxy under one banner, a banner without Earth, and we will crush them." Though fear gripped many corners of the galaxy, there were still those who believed peace was possible. Lila Monroe, despite her loyalty to Queen Nysa, felt uneasy about joining forces with the Krylos. She remembered Daniel's words during the summit, not just his defiance, but also the pain hidden beneath his bravado. Perhaps, she thought, there was more to humanity's decision than met the eye. For now, however, the galaxy braced itself for what was coming next. Lines had been drawn, and the stage was set for a confrontation that could reshape the stars forever. Document. Part 3. Ethan Blake moved through the shadows of Earth's capital city, his footsteps silent on the cold pavement. The night was dark, with only the faint glow of distant streetlights breaking the gloom. He had spent days following leads, piecing together fragments of information that pointed to a conspiracy lurking in the highest levels of power. His instincts told him someone close to President Rachel Dawson was involved in sabotaging humanity's diplomatic efforts, and he was determined to find out who. Inside a secure facility on the outskirts of the city, Ethan slipped past guards, using a stolen access card. The building housed classified files, and he knew the answers he sought were hidden somewhere within its walls. As he navigated dimly lit hallways lined with locked doors, his heart pounded in his chest. Finally, he reached a room marked Restricted Access. Using a small device to bypass the security system, he stepped inside. The room was filled with rows of data terminals, their screens glowing faintly in the darkness. Ethan quickly began searching for files related to recent diplomatic decisions. It didn't take long before he found something alarming encrypted. Documents linking corporate tycoon Richard Grayson to secret meetings with high-ranking military officials. The files revealed how Grayson had manipulated events to push Earth toward conflict, ensuring his weapons contracts would skyrocket in value. Ethan copied the evidence onto a portable drive, knowing it could expose the truth, but also knowing it made him a target. Meanwhile, Sarah Hughes sat alone in her cramped apartment, staring at her laptop screen. She had spent hours combing through the classified documents she'd uncovered, her mind racing with the implications. The experiments conducted by Earth's defense forces were shocking. Alien technology had been reverse-engineered without permission, violating countless treaties. If she published her findings, it would spark outrage across the galaxy. But if she stayed silent, she would be complicit in covering up humanity's crimes. Sarah hesitated, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. She thought about the refugees flooding into Earth's cities, fleeing violence fueled by mistrust and fear. She thought about the families torn apart by war and the innocent lives lost because of greed and arrogance. Finally, she made her decision. With trembling hands, she uploaded the documents to an anonymous server, hoping they would reach the right people. Back at the White House, President Rachel Dawson faced mounting pressure from global leaders. Protests outside the gates grew louder. Each day, with crowds chanting for accountability, Rachel knew she couldn't ignore the growing unrest any longer. Summoning Daniel Carter to her office, she demanded answers. What really happened at that summit? She asked, her voice sharp. Did you act alone, or was someone pulling your strings? Daniel hesitated, his usual confidence faltering under Rachel's piercing gaze. I thought I was doing what was best for humanity, he stammered. But now I'm not so sure. Before Rachel could press further, an aide burst into the room, pale-faced and breathless. Ma'am, we have a situation, he said urgently. Someone leaked classified information online. It's spreading like wildfire. Rachel froze, dread washing over her. She grabbed her tablet and opened a news feed, where headlines screamed about unethical experiments and corporate corruption. The public reaction was swift and explosive. Social media erupted with outrage, and calls for justice echoed across the globe. Rachel realized the leak wasn't just damaging, it was catastrophic, as chaos unfolded on Earth. Tensions in the galaxy continued to escalate. Commander Jorak of the Krylos seized the opportunity to rally more allies to his cause. He broadcast fiery speeches denouncing humanity's actions, calling them thieves and liars. Queen Nysa of the Zentari watched silently, her expression unreadable. Though she had agreed to join forces with Jorak, doubt lingered in her mind. Was this truly the path to peace, or just another step toward destruction? Lila Monroe, still serving as a diplomat for the Zentari, felt torn between duty and conscience. She remembered Daniel's words during the summit, not just his defiance, but the pain behind them. Could there be more to humanity's story, or was it too late to turn back? For now, the galaxy held its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. Lines had been drawn, secrets exposed, and trust shattered. Whatever came next, it was clear that the road ahead would be paved with fire and blood. Document. Part 4. The fragile peace, shattered in an instant. The Krylos fleet struck without warning, targeting a human colony near the outer rim of the galaxy. It was a small settlement called Haven 7, home to thousands of families who had sought refuge from Earth's crowded cities. The attack came in the dead of night, when most residents were asleep. Bright streaks of plasma fire lit up the sky as Krylos warships descended like vultures, their weapons tearing through the colony's defenses with terrifying efficiency. Captain Olivia Hayes received a distress signal while stationed aboard her flagship, the Solace. Her hands clenched the edges of her command chair as she listened to the frantic voices crackling over the comms. "This is Haven 7. We're under attack. Request immediate assistance." The transmission cut off abruptly, replaced by static. Olivia's jaw tightened. She knew they were too far away to intervene in time, but the thought of doing nothing made her sick. General Marcus Lane wasted no time ordering a He summoned Olivia to his office, where holographic maps of the galaxy floated above his desk. "We can't let this stand," he said, his voice low and steely. "If we don't respond, the Krylos will see us as weak. Take your squadron and hit them hard. Show them humanity isn't afraid to fight back." Olivia nodded, though unease gnawed at her insides. She trusted General Lane, but she couldn't shake the feeling that retaliation would only escalate the conflict. Still, orders were orders. Returning to the Solace, she briefed her crew on the mission ahead. Their target was a Krylos supply, Deepak orbiting a nearby star, a strategic location that would cripple the enemy's logistics if destroyed. It wasn't a direct strike against Commander Jrock, but it was a start, as the squadron prepared for battle. News of the Haven 7 massacre reached Earth. Refugees who had managed to escape the attack shared harrowing stories of destruction and loss. Families huddled together in overcrowded shuttles, their faces pale with shock. Images of burning buildings and charred landscapes flooded the media, sparking outrage across the planet. Protests erupted once again, with crowds demanding justice for the victims. For many, the war now felt personal and unavoidable. On the Solace, Olivia tried to focus on the mission, but the weight of responsibility pressed heavily on her shoulders. She thought about the people of Haven 7, their lives cut short because of humanity's refusal to negotiate. Was this really what Daniel Carter had wanted? Had he foreseen the bloodshed his words would unleash? Olivia pushed the thoughts aside. There was no room for doubt, not now. The battle began in the cold silence of space. Olivia led her squadron into the heart of the Krylos supply depot, dodging enemy fire as they launched waves of quantum disruptors. The experimental weapons proved devastatingly effective, ripping through Krylos shields and leaving their ships vulnerable. Explosions lit up the void as one enemy vessel after another succumbed to the assault. But victory came at a cost. 2 of Olivia's ships were destroyed, their crews lost forever in the endless darkness. When the dust settled, the depot was in ruins. Olivia surveyed the wreckage from the bridge of the Solace, her expression grim. They had achieved their objective, but the victory felt hollow. Across the galaxy, the Krylos vowed revenge. Commander Jorak addressed his fleet, his voice dripping with fury. "Humanity has shown its true face," he declared. They are murderers, cowards, who prey on the innocent. From this day forward, we will show them no mercy. Back on Earth. President Rachel Dawson watched footage of the battle with growing dread. The war was spiraling out of control, and there seemed to be no end in sight. Thousands of lives had already been lost, and countless more were at risk. As she stared at the screen, she couldn't help but wonder if humanity had made a terrible mistake. Could they still find a way to stop the bloodshed? Or was it too late? For now, the galaxy braced itself for what was coming next. The lines between right and wrong blurred with each passing day, and the cost of pride grew higher with every shot fired. Whatever happened next, one thing was certain: the stars would never be the same again. Document. Part 5. The war raged on, leaving scars that stretched far beyond the battlefield. Refugees poured into neighboring star systems, their ships battered and their spirits broken. Many carried nothing but the clothes on their backs, and memories of loved ones lost. Mia Collins was one of them, a schoolteacher from Haven 7. She had barely escaped the Krylos attack with her life. Now, aboard a damaged freighter, drifting through space, she clung to her small recording device, the only thing she had left, to document the horrors she had witnessed. Mia's recordings became a window into the human cost of the conflict. She spoke softly, but with raw emotion, describing the chaos of the attack, the cries of children separated from their parents, and the cold emptiness of space where homes once stood. Her words painted a vivid picture of suffering, one that resonated deeply with those who heard them. When the recordings were shared online, they went viral almost instantly. People across the galaxy watched in stunned silence, their hearts heavy with grief and anger. For the first time, the true toll of the war became impossible to ignore. On Earth, protests grew louder and more desperate. Crowds filled city streets, holding signs that read, "No more war, and bring our families home." Some demonstrators chanted for peace, while others demanded accountability from their leaders. President Rachel Dawson faced mounting pressure to address the crisis. Her speeches no longer reassured the public. Instead, they fueled frustration. Critics accused her of failing to prevent the war or protect humanity's interests. Even Daniel Carter, whose declaration had sparked the conflict, began to retreat from the spotlight, haunted by the consequences of his actions. Amidst the turmoil, Ethan Blake continued his investigation into Richard Grayson, armed with the evidence he had uncovered at the secure facility. Ethan confronted Grayson in his private estate, a sprawling mansion surrounded by high walls and armed guards. The meeting took place in Grayson's office, a lavish room adorned with trophies and artifacts from alien worlds. Grayson sat behind a polished desk, his expression calm but calculating. "You've dug up some interesting files," Grayson said, leaning back in his chair. His tone was casual, as if discussing the weather. "But what do you hope to accomplish? Exposing me won't change anything." "It's not about changing the past," Ethan replied, his voice steady, despite the knot of fear in his stomach. "It's about stopping you from doing more damage. If people knew how you manipulated this war for profit, they'd tear you apart." Grayson smirked, unfazed. "And what makes you think anyone will believe you? You're just a low-level operative with no proof that can stand up to scrutiny." Ethan set the portable drive containing the classified documents on the desk. "This is my proof. And unless you want it made public, you'll confess everything right now." For a moment, Grayson's composure faltered. He stared at the drive, his mind racing. Finally, he sighed and leaned forward. "Fine," he said, his voice tinged with resignation. "I'll admit I played a role in all this, but don't pretend humanity wasn't already headed for disaster. All I did was speed things along." As Ethan recorded Grayson's confession, Sarah Hughes worked tirelessly to publish her findings about Earth's secret experiments. Her article appeared on a major news site, accompanied by leaked documents proving humanity's theft of alien technology. The revelation shocked the galaxy, further eroding trust in Earth's leadership. Calls for sanctions and reparations echoed across interstellar channels, adding another layer of complexity to the growing crisis. Meanwhile, Queen Nysa of the Zentari convened an emergency council session to discuss the escalating violence. Lila Monroe attended reluctantly, still torn between loyalty to her people and doubts about the path they had chosen. As delegates debated whether to push for peace or continue the fight, Lila found herself questioning everything. Was revenge truly worth the cost? Or was there still a chance to heal the wounds before they became fatal? For now, the galaxy remained locked in a cycle of destruction and retaliation. Each side believed it was fighting for justice, yet none seemed willing to take the first step toward reconciliation. The stars burned brighter than ever, but beneath their glow lay a future clouded by uncertainty. Whatever happened next, the choices made in these moments would shape the galaxy for generations to come.